Q&A. It goes really, really quickly. And I can talk to these two, fill up that time very easily, but with these Q&As, it's so much more interesting if you ask, if you guys get involved. And all I ask is that you don't just shout out questions, you wait for me to call on you. After we get the ball rolling here, I will start scanning the audience for hands. I don't know if the house lights can come up just a tad so I can see a bit better, but if not, I'll be squinting like this. So you have to make sure your hands are really high. So to get you used to raising your hands, you guys can take part too. Who's on social media? Is anyone on social media? Who's got, raise your hands? Fantastic. If you are, please feel free to turn your phones on, keep them on silent. You may, oh, that's exactly the wrong direction. Please feel free to turn your phones on, keep them on silent. You may take photos, video clips of the Q&A. We have only got a week here, but as I say, we want to spread the word of mouth about the show. Oh, good. It's all happening now. I'm sorry, you overruled that.
I know,
Too late. And we've got convenient backdrop. So if you're on Instagram, the show handle is this. Please tag the show, tag the theatre. Both Jake Brunger, the writer, Jack Sain, the director, are also on Instagram. Their handles are on the show. The show site is also, if you want to tag me, I can share that too. It really helps with word of mouth, thank you. Other social media does exist. Okay, who's been to the gym today? Anyone? No, who feels guilty that they didn't go to the gym today? No, that opening sequence, right? Anyone from Leeds? Want to admit it? No. Anyone work at KPMG? No, okay. And does anyone know they already have a question they want to ask? Okay, we'll come to you and everybody else start thinking, but let me start first of all then by introducing you to the wonderful writer Jake Brunger. Is this the hard G or the soft G?
RG, yeah.
Jake Brunger and the director Jack Sain. Taking part, can you please pass on our immense gratitude to the cast for just a barnstorming performance today. And I think that was reflected in the standing ovation. But you really have brought together an amazing company. So thank you to Daniel, Lewis, Joe, and Jing as well. Okay, so this play, Foreplay, was originally staged a little over 10 years ago at the Old Vic, and it was play obviously was written by Jake, and that initial production was also directed by Jack. So this is quite a big revival to bring it back a little over 10 years later. But let's rewind back to 2014, was it?
13, yeah.
2013. Jake, what was the inspiration for Foreplay?
It came about because at the time Kevin Spacey was running the Old Vic, which is a terrible story to start with. But thanks Kevin for being here. And the Old Vic Theatre had some seed money from the T.S. Eliot Foundation, who, as we know from Cats, are very rich. And they commissioned 10 of us to write new plays. Now, honestly, I can't tell you how little money there is out there for new play commissions. It's like the hardest thing you can get. I think even now, like a Royal Court Upstairs commission back then was like £2,500. So to be paid to write a play was great. And the Old Vic said that I was the chosen gay writer and that they wanted me to write a State of the Nation gay play. That's genuinely what they said to me in my interview. And this was the same year that like gay marriage had been legalized and like lots of like people were starting to have babies. And I just said in my interview, like spitballed, I was like, I think in order to get to marriage, there's another hurdle that people have to get over, which is how do you live when there's like all these options on the table, to get to that stage.
Okay. And Jack, how were you involved with Old Vic New Voices was the program? Were you paired with Jake or had you been working together before?
I mean, to be honest, this play has a special fondness in my heart because it was my professional debut actually, was working with Jake. And Jake, along with producers of the Old Vic, were the ones that interviewed me. And I did a big sell about getting really famous people involved,
and you did pretty well with that.
We actually did pretty well with that. Yeah, we had a very.
Who was in it?
So it was Richard Madden, Jeremy Irvine, Tom Rhys-Harris, and Josh McCord, who are all fabulous actors and also TV stars. So it got a lot of attention, which I think helped us a great deal. But it was a very, very different chemistry and energy. That was all. They were 4 straight actors. which changes the dynamic entirely because the audience has this kind of special frisson of like, oh, we're going to see boys kiss, you know, you can do this. Whereas this has been a very different experience because it's through, you know, largely error, it's a very, very queer space, and that's created a very, I think that's almost why there's such an incredible synergy in the current cast as well.
That didn't occur to me when looking at the cast of that original round. How did you feel about that? Did it matter to you that they were not gay actors?
At the time, the conversation was very different. We didn't prioritize people playing or making art that was only from their own voice. The language has changed drastically in the theatre landscape. But at the time, I thought it was, frankly, I thought it was compelling and interesting to see these quite well-known faces willing to put their names behind a queer project, because even that doesn't always happen. Things are different now.
It feels weird that 10 years ago feels like a lifetime ago. It was also the white cast, which just like would absolutely not happen now. Some things have made leaps and bound changes, I think, in that time.
Okay, so you've touched on some key differences from that round to this round. But you two have also changed.
You play as well.
Yeah. And the play has. So I want to talk about like how you approached it differently and what changes you made to it.
So I'm very lucky that in the 10 years since it's been done, it was done in 2020 at the Stag Theatre again for 6 weeks, which was amazing, just for the pandemic.
But that also was a venue that was known for gay performances and production.
Yeah, whereas after the Old Vic, it had done Theatre 503 for 5 weeks, which was a new writing space. So at Theatre 503, it was like a very straight audience because that was a new writing theatre. It wasn't like the gays didn't find it there. And then last year it was in San Francisco for the first time in completely American. So the Leeds equivalent of San Francisco is Las Vegas, which I never knew. That's like the cheap place to buy a house, apparently. And going over it then last year, I rang the producer Raman and I was like, there's still something here in this play. I really think it's not had it's like the production I always kind of think it should have. And that's how we ended up coming back to it. And just the things that have changed in the play are, we did a table read last year with some younger people. I mean, I'm 37 now, but like they were 25, and they said they felt that monogamy was something that you now opt into rather than opt out. And that was the biggest change. And the play used to end with Michael and Andrew closing their relationship, whereas at this, we made it that they stayed together, but that they had learned from, and they sort of that. The conversations they'd had informed where they were going to go next, because the people in the table read were like, you can't do this play where it says that monogamy can only be solved if you close your relationship.
I think that's interesting too, because I was here with a friend of mine I'm such a geek, I'm in a debate club, and we actually did a debate about whether monogamy is the norm anymore, not just generally, and I think that applies as much to all relationships, not just queer relationships. That was definitely, and we won the debate. It was no longer the norm.
I want to know more about the debate club.
Okay, right. But very good. We've got the ball rolling now. So, question in the back, please.
So, this is, first it's about the writing, but then I guess it leads into the directing. I wonder if you could touch on the balance that you had to strike between finding the comedy, but also like the tension in the writing, in that like there are some very tense scenes towards the end, but you still find a way to put in these scripts that allow the audience like some sort of relief so it doesn't get too heavy. And I guess then how do you go about directing those to make sure that the tension in the scene is still going forward in the right way?
That is a great question. So let's first start with it from the writing angle.
I mean, my writing is like, it's full of, without being wanky, it's like I'm a comedy writer, but like I write in, if you look at the play text, if you can buy outside, it's on, it's on like different lines, so it's very much the way that I speak. I mean, we all self-correct as we speak, so the way that these characters in this play, as I'm sure you can tell, constantly self-correcting, people jumping in and out like people do in natural speech, but I think I just, from an early age, I mean, I've been obsessed with theatre as a child, and I know that the best plays are funny. You know, Chekhov is funny, Shakespeare is funny, Les Mis is funny with the Thénardiers, Saigon is funny with the engineer. And I just knew that I know it turns quite serious, but there's still little things within that. There is, I trained under Tim Firth. My first job out of university was assistant directing on Calendar Girls in the West End, and then 7 tours. And Tim has this thing called a treacle cutter, which is that you can say something really sad and really syrupy, but you undercut it with a joke. And Calendar Girls is again a play about death, about cancer, but is a very funny play. So I think that's always been in my work, and what I sort of, and still I wrote the Bake Off musical, which is the opposite to that, which is there's a very, very funny show, and then there's some really, really serious, like tear-jerking bits that I'm so proud that we put in that, because I think people thought it was just going to be a silly comedy, basically.
Yeah. And what challenge does that bring to you then as a director, Jack?
Well, the play is structured brilliantly in that it's a series of sort of vignettes and short scenes that are very, very funny, and then slowly you kind of get hoodwinked into a complex three-dimensional drama. I think you kind of undercuts you, don't really know it's coming. So the fact that we have comedy to start with, it puts people at ease, it makes them feel comfortable. Those who don't necessarily love the theatre suddenly find themselves having a good time, and then they are compelled by it. But in two ways, really. You try and make it as three-dimensional as possible. You try and make sure that you're not doing a gag at expense of the storytelling. You know, if it's funny but it doesn't make sense, then it can't stay. And then you also supplement it with a theatricality. So, for instance, in this production, it starts very plastic, very neon, very, very colourful. And then slowly, as the play gets kind of more complex and three-dimensional and wrought and tense, maybe you might have noticed by the very last scene, when they were outside, it's kind of all as naturalistic as possible. There's some birdsong, but there's also just four lifelike tungsten lights playing on them, and the neon's all gone. And then at the end, the very end, a bit of theatricality creeps back in when it's supposed to be ambiguous and complex again. But yeah, I mean, again, it's the play is brilliant, so it wasn't hard finding that balance.
There are no stage directions in the text.
Well, I was going to say,
yeah.
I noticed that. I read the text, and that's why I was, when the opening scene with the gin and the balls and everything, I was like, wow, didn't expect that at all. And that did add additional humour, like where you place them in having some of these conversations and how they do it. So was that something that you discussed, and is that specific to this production, or?
I told a bit to Jake, but Jake was kind of like, do what you want. So yeah, Michael isn't a trainer in the text. All of these things were kind of where you choose to set it and what their jobs are, even apart from KPMG, are kind of up to the individual production. So the honest thinking behind it was that I wanted action that was going to, again, supplement the text or tell something new or provide comic opportunities. The ball sequence, very specifically, this theatre has a reputation as a queer space in a great way, but part of me was kind of wanting to send up and also let people feel like they were in for a very specific kind of night and go, okay, I can ease into this, we're just going to have a silly old time, and then you get them by the balls. Yeah, exactly. So that was sort of the purpose there.
Fantastic. Hand over here, please.
Hi, I'm just very curious about you talked about starting to write this when gay marriage. I'm kind of thinking about the non-binary character and the treatment of transness over the last 10 years.
Yeah.
I wonder whether, as a writer and a director, how did anything change or?
So this was because, we should actually, just before we touch on that slightly, I just want to add the reason why some of you may know that this is for musical theatre performers is because that was kind of part of what I put around. So I am a musical theatre writer, that's kind of where I'm best known. And I always have a real chip on my shoulder that musical theatre actors don't get to cross into straight plays, whereas if straight play actors like Rory Kinnear being and Here We Are, they get to do it much more fluidly. So the first thing I set out to say is, can we please see, and all four of these are leaders in musical theatre, and that's where Joe Foster came to us for Andy. You know, we sent the text out to many people to come and audition, and Joe's audition was just so ridiculous. It was so amazing. Jack didn't ask for them to reread, which normally you do that, and then you ask for direction. And then we had a session with Joe all afternoon, and we thought that I was going to make loads of changes. I went in being like, okay, and actually all it turned into was just a few phrases that changed from, and that was also a sensibility thing. Like there's a thing where Joe says, you've made me look like a total fucking knob that used to be total fucking twat. And sorry, it's a expletive language, but Joe was like, that's not really like a word that I would use, or gendered word like that. References to you guys, things like that, like hey you guys, that kind of going down. But interestingly, when the portrayal of Andrew, as it says in the playtext, because the playtext is now with the new pronouns in there, but you can change it back because it used to be Andrew. When I went to see it in San Francisco last year, I didn't know this, but at the curtain call, the actor playing Andrew said, thank you very much for coming, we are doing a collection for trans charity because I'm a trans man. And I had not known this at all for the whole show. And when it was Above the Stag, the portrayal of Andrew was someone who self-identified as bear, and Michael was this muscle god and he was this bear. So it's just in terms of like how Andrew feels in relation to themselves in terms of hotness. And I think as gay queer people, there's always someone hotter than us somewhere.
I can relate to that too.
It was also very important for us to feel like we were reflecting the queer society that we currently live in. I think when we went into this, we thought, the play that we had worked on 10 years ago was an extraordinary piece of writing in and of itself, but I think both of us felt 10 years later that there were things that we had a slightly altered perspective on, both in terms of monogamy and in terms of some of the humour, but also the actors we wanted to cast.
I think as you'll notice that what I'm pleased about is that we didn't, and we did talk to Joe about doing this, about do you need any explanation of why Andy is non-binary? But the answer is no. These are people, Rafe and Pete, they went to university together. Michael and Andy have been in a relationship for 3 years. I didn't want to see a play where, as we know, there are a lot of plays out there that tackle that and only that, and that's the subject. And so I think that, again, to be almost a little bit forward-thinking, there hopefully comes a time where within friendship groups where it doesn't come up as a sort of, we need to talk about why this person is non-binary. It wouldn't happen in real life, so it shouldn't happen in theatre as well.
Agreed.
Very good. Yes, hand here, please.
Hello. First of all, really enjoyed it. Fantastic piece of work. I had a question about the direction, actually, which was I'm really curious about the use of music and the incidental stuff that you use and snippets of pop songs. How does that come about, and how do you work that? When do you decide to put these things in? What are the different types of music that you use to create this world?
Before you answer, Jack, I just want to say you all should get a copy of the program if you haven't yet, because this music is very important, and you have a particular addition to the creative team that speaks to this, and is there's an interview with this person in the program.
Yes, so on a broader, just general level, the way I see the use of music is often in, I mean, if it's not diegetic, but if it's in the transition space, sometimes for me I kind of think, okay, I feel like this scene has to move to the scene very quickly for comic purposes, there's no space and there's no rhyme, there's no reason. But then other times there are moments where an emotional gap needs to be bridged, and that is everything from Jake's writing to Shakespeare's writing. Sometimes for me I kind of think, oh, I feel like I need to see this journey. I need to see a moment with Rafe and Pete alone where they just have a moment of beauty and intimacy and nervousness and they comfort each other. Or I need to see what's building up to that affair scene in the hotel. So that's what informs how I create those transitions and why we create those transitions. I don't do them alone. I had a brilliant movement director in the show called Charlie Martin. Hire her, she's a genius. But in terms of the music for the show, we had specific 4 pop songs written by Benedict Cork, who's a really great upcoming, not upcoming, he's very famous at this point, but he's a brilliant pop singer. And I just felt like his language, his theatrical quality of his music really matched the style of Jake's play. And luckily DEM producers were willing to put some money into that. And so that's some of the music that's woven into the show. Other times it's cheap tricks, like in the working out sequence, there's 2 songs that's used. There's a remix of Janet Jackson's Every Time, followed by the very calm, still version Every Time, and I thought that was just a fun balance, because the way we staged it was that they were essentially doing the same thing, but Rafe was just doing it slightly worse. So yeah, it's trying to find, it's all about rhythm. It's all about trying to maintain a very specific pace or trying to engineer a new pace that fits the thing that you're trying to say.
Are the 4 songs that Benedict wrote available somewhere?
They might be at some point. Unfortunately, it all came up. He's released an EP at exactly the same time as our show, so they might be in the future. Watch this space.
Well, so the other thing that occurs to me, given the musical theatre pedigree and the fact that you already have Benedict involved, can you imagine a musical version of 4
No.
songs?
I'm trying to get away from musicals, Terri.
You've already got the great cast. Okay, other hands. Let's go to the second row, and then we'll come to you.
I absolutely loved it. I thought it was incredible just to start. Do you feel that your positionality as individuals has affected the way you've created the play?
Yes. Sorry.
Oh yeah.
And in like what way, compared to like 10 years ago and now?
I mean, without going into too much personal heartbreak, I wrote the play 12 years ago when I had just come out of my first relationship that, I'd been in a very long, like that Rafe opening monologue is very similar to the circumstances I'd been in this, very...
You were raped.
No, well, let's not go there. We did not proposition a friend, but, I've been with one person, and we always used to talk about, this is so weird, we've been together, we had a house together and stuff. And then unfortunately, I then predicted what happened in the rest of my life. And this is purely and actually that poor boyfriend did come and see, ex-boyfriend came and saw it the other day, so a friend said that he was quite upset afterwards. But that was written long before him, so I sort of premonitionally wrote it myself. I've been through all of the things now. I think we talk about, everyone always asks us, which one are you? And I think we've all spiraled through every one of them at every point. We've all been with someone who's hotter than us or less hot than us, or we've all been through, there's just so many. And yeah, everyone's done something. There's a great moment where Andy says, why don't you open up your DMs? I'm sure everybody here would chill if everyone's DMs were opened. I've spiraled through. It's very cathartic now to see it 10 years later at a very different point, but I'm kind of quite happy to leave it.
Yeah. And I guess, Jack, your partner's in the audience, so maybe you want to...
And his parents.
Oh.
And my mum. So, no, I had just graduated uni when we first did the play, and the notion of a non-monogamous relationship was so anathema to my whole existence. Whereas now I've lived in the queer community for a decade, and I see many successful and happy non-monogamous relationships, and so the ending, I think, for me, the way we staged it, I think, is supposed to be relatively ambiguous, because do you know whether they're going to stay happy together? I mean, I don't think we do. And I don't think
Does anyone know if they're going to stay happy
Well,
Very good, okay. Sorry, I promised you, and then we'll come to you. Yeah.
Congrats on the production, it's really well made. And also, my name is Hunter, so...
Hey! You were to be here!
It's a bit of a loaded topic, but I just wondered what are your thoughts on queer versus straight performers taking queer roles? Because I've seen many queer plays and queer films as well, where I know the actor on screen or on stage is not queer, but they still give a really authentic, sensitive, thoughtful performance.
Well, I guess you experienced this with the first round.
I did. I'll be honest. So I've often been of the mindset that that people should play. It's acting. And you should do whatever you want. And I had an argument with a friend about this last year, and then that friend said to me, Colman Domingo and Ian McKellen are the only out gay actors to be nominated for Oscars in the last 30 years or so. And I thought, oh God, is that really true? I think it's a challenging thing when there's a minority that's being represented on stage, and that minority, who are the players, are also not getting as many opportunities. And I think it's kind of important to try and prioritise people who aren't getting opportunities. But I think it's a complicated topic, and I think it's an ever-evolving one. And the current landscape has a very particular perspective, and I think it's respectful to maintain that perspective. What do you think?
Yeah,
It's really difficult. I mean, we've all seen like amazing. There was that Lost Boys and Fairies on BBC One recently, where the lead actor in that was a straight actor. So I didn't know that till after I'd seen it, but it almost throws the judgment back onto us as viewers. And if we get all that actors like Colin Firth and Stanley Tucci in that film Supernova, who were playing a gay couple, if you go, I don't believe it, it's like, well then that's up on you rather than on them.
Because it forces people to be out, and it makes sexuality binary, and life is complicated and fluid. So
the same could apply for writers. A lot of writers get stick for writing about something that isn't from their lived experience.
Yeah, last year I was writing a children's BBC a single musical Christmas special. Get all that in your head. And they ended up, I don't think I've had an email, that I got fired because I wasn't a female writer, and it was for a young girl. And I was like, please, I've written for children all my whole life, and like, I don't know. But whatever, it's a hard topic, and I think that you can, actually, similarly, a play I've written about straight people, it's about a woman who doesn't want a child, and my agent was like, oh, you can't tackle this thing about a woman who doesn't want a child. And I'm like, well, I'm a gay man, I have to still make a decision whether I want a child or not. I think I'm actually quite well placed because I don't have that actual physical, so you can almost be more...
Interesting that she already had a concern about it.
Of course, yeah, that play's never been produced to this day, but I know, it nearly did, but yeah, it's a tough one.
Wow, okay, yes, Anne here.
I was just wondering, regarding your writing process, were there any specific sort of exercises or concepts you used to sort of explore the dialogue? Because I think dialogue could be sort of something that you can sort of get stuck in with, maybe being too naturalistic or saying exactly what they want to say, and I just thought it was so gorgeously written, and I just wanted to know how you did that.
So literally I can tell you exactly the answer. I come from Nottingham, and like when I was 14 and 15 I used to live in Nottingham Library, and my actual gods were David Mamet and Neil LaBute, and Rebecca Gilman, who's an American writer, once I could start buying plays from Raw Core. I don't know if you know Neil LaBute's work, but like I've stolen it all from Neil LaBute. He's like, and actually I had a meeting really early in my career to assist him on Reading History Pretty at the Almeida Theatre, and I was like, oh my god, meet my god, and he wasn't the god that you hope when you meet him. But literally, I mean, I'm obsessed about dialogue. You said this on day one. You're like, the text is like music. It's like there's dashes, there's commas, there's. I don't know if you can learn it or if you can just. I spitball. I just write so much, and then editing back is my challenge because I can write dialogue for days. It's just making sure that the leanness is there afterwards. And in musical theatre, you have to be more strict on yourself with dialogue because really you can only have like a minute and a half scene before a song. So bizarrely, my music. That's why I like to let written plays, because in musicals you're really contained to what you can write in dialogue. It's got to be sparse, unfortunately.
Amazing. Okay, I think we've got time for maybe 2 more audience questions. Yes, sorry, in front of it.
I really enjoyed the production, thank you. I was also thinking about the time period of 10 years and I guess your considerations about content and updates. I was thinking one of the significant things, I suppose, within non-monogamous relationships, gay relationships and gay sex is the introduction of PrEP.
Yeah.
And I was wondering whether that was a consideration about a dialogue around that and content around the type of sex that these guys are going to be having.
No, I guess that it's...
Just
yeah.
explain for, I'm sure there are other straight people in the audience, what is PrEP?
PrEP is like a daily pill you take to stop getting HIV. Interestingly, so when I went to San Francisco last year to see the production, just before I went, I watched the whole of Looking, which was made in 2014. Worth a rewatch, and they have whole scenes where Jonathan Groff says, "I'm not going to take PrEP. I don't want to be that slut who's just taking a pill." And you watch it now, and you're like, oh, it feels really dated. So I think it's the same thing that actually not talking about it is it would date it to start talking about it, because that would change even in the time that PrEP's been around. I guess for 6 years now, I think those conversations change. So I guess it's a bit like non-binary thing. It's don't have the conversation if it's then going to be a conversation that these characters know what PrEP is. They would be on it. It's not. I don't think it would be discussed necessarily. Do you?
No, I mean, yeah, it's one of those things where a play can only be about so many things, and this is one of those plays that opens a lot of questions rather than answering them. I think there's and you either like those kind of plays or you don't. Some plays are incredibly full of detail and specificity because the writer sometimes feels like they're preaching to you, whereas if you read the script of this, it's fascinating because I think a lot of things that you imagine from this production would have been in the script just aren't. So when you see other productions of it, they can be, I've seen one set in toilets. I mean, it can be completely different. And I think that's one of the joys, and also why it's really lasted so long. And
there was one little reference where Rafe says, "I hope this isn't going to cause a problem. Bump into a Sainsbury's or give us gonorrhea." That's the only reference to an STD that they feel that Michael is safe because he probably be tested regularly. Maybe.
Good. Okay, final question. Who's got a really good one? Is it a good one?
I don't think so.
Okay, well, let's hear it. Does anyone else have a question as well? Okay, so we'll hear both of them, we'll decide. Go on. We'll answer both. Go on, what's your question?
I was going to ask if you think it was easier or harder to put on queer plays now, and if it will be easier and harder in the future with everything going on.
Interesting. That's a very good question, but don't answer that yet. Let's hear the other question. Go on.
I was very broad.
Okay.
It's, what advice do you have for any aspiring playwrights / musical theatre?
Okay, these are both excellent questions. So let's talk first about advice for aspiring playwrights.
Honestly, it's so hard. I wish I could say it's easy. I don't think it gets any easier. I think it gets harder. I think the climate at the moment is really tough. So Pippa, my co-writer, and I who write musicals, you may know some of our stuff. We have a show that started in 2017 that's workshop. We cannot get it on anywhere. It's a nightmare. We do have a show
Which
coming
one is
up.
that?
It's a new show called My Life Without You. It's workshopped, it's ready, it's got money. It's just no one will take the risk. You can't put on a show in regional theatres now without having commercial enhancement from us, Sonia Friedman or from Anika Burns. And so, all those places that you used to want to do an out-of-town tryout, Bristol, Chichester, etc., need commercial enhancement. This is so boring, on a business level, but it's really big, and I can't emphasize how hard it is as freelance writers. It's a tough game. So, and also the things that used to be easy to get work on, when I started out 16, 17 years ago, you could take a show to Edinburgh Fringe, you could do it at Public Theatre 503, you could do it at Volts. There's so many places, and now you can't, and it makes me so sad. I don't know how people would start out, because
Edinburgh Fringe is so expensive, and it was awful that we lost the Vaults Festival.
Volts, yeah. So all those things that you could put work on cheaply and affordably, that's why I think so many comedians have turned to TikTok 30 seconds, because that's the only way you can get poached, and then to get a TV script deal, which is kind of all there is for that. So I know it's really bleak, but I don't really have the answer either. It's hard.
So in fact, these two questions are related then. So
having said that, though, I will say that the best art comes out of times of political socio-economic strife. So I think that the world is just going to get worse and worse, and the art will get better.
Directly to the other question, do you think with queer plays in particular, has it got easier, harder than 10 years ago, and what's your prediction for the future?
I don't know if I have the expertise to talk about the landscape particularly. I do think that Yeah, I mean, I think it's just harder to get work done, like just across the board. Queer theatre in particular, I think there are some fabulous queer-run spaces, but
such as the King's Head.
Such as the King's Head Theatre and Above the Stag, and there are lots of other major theatres who feel like it's important to make sure at least one show in their season represents a certain part of their community. But it's a challenging time to be a writer. So if you have the capacity to make short form narrative, that is what is being made right now. That's what's going on. But like all of the scratch nights that existed when I was first starting out don't exist anymore. All of the writers' courses that I loved and cherished and from whom I met some great talents don't exist anymore. So it's not easy. But again, I think that keep going.
So by short form narrative, you mean TikTok videos?
Yeah, I mean, again, our attention spans are fucked because we're all doing this on social media every 5 seconds. So even I think people say with this one that it feels really short, but that's because it's advertised as 90 minutes and it's actually 1 hour 24. So everyone's bodies are like, oh my god, that was so quick. But like, I get frustrated if I'm not watching a 90-minute show these days. My attention span is blinkered as hell.
I've said this for years. The best words in the theatre language is 90 minutes, no interval. Yeah. That's not so good for the bar takings, though, or the theatre, which is important. Okay, so final silly question of you both: Asda or Sainsbury's?
Sadly, I live down the road, so there isn't Asda for miles. So Sainsbury's now, I'm afraid.
Tesco's girly.
Very good. And so Foreplay is here. It's only one more week, isn't it? Has it been a good run?
It's been great, honestly. Like, it's the reaction. We get show reports every night that tell you what the audience has been and like whether they laughed, and it has been incredible. Yeah, it's amazing. It's a dream. This is exactly how. This is the production that I'm like so thrilled with. Jack's done an amazing job. It's an amazing cast, and it's the reaction what you saw tonight is how it is every night.
So that's so interesting. I'm so glad to hear it. Sometimes I think with stories in general that have been adapted for different things, somehow the story finds its best form. But what you're saying is it's found its ideal production.
Yeah.
Well, to speak again back to your point, is that we first came to this 10 years ago, and whether we've not been working on it for 10 years, but it's probably been percolating back in the back of my mind for a long time. I'm sure it has with you as well. It's had 10 years of like gentle back of the mind thinking, and that's what's lacking these days for young theatre makers, is the opportunity to just be given a bit of money and go and sit in a room and stare at a wall and tear your hair out and achieve nothing. That's what really people need, is time to develop stuff.
And also second
over a
productions,
long-term basis.
we've lost completely the second productions of people who had their first plays produced. I'm thinking about like Morgan Lloyd Malcolm's Amelia, which was like a barnstorming success 4 years ago, and it's wild that like Sheffield haven't done it, or like Bristol. Like it really, some of these amazing plays never get a second outing ever. And I'm really lucky that although bizarrely it's been in like gay spaces, I don't care. I'm happy for gay spaces to do this play forever. It's a gift to me that it will keep doing that. Drama schools have also taken up on doing this, so I get to go and see drama schools do it. And people do the monologue, they do the wank monologue in drama school auditions. And I occasionally get like messages from friends who are on panels, like Paul Foster was on the Guildhall panel the other day, text me saying, someone has just come and done this speech from Foreplay about wanking. I think the boy got in there. So.
Well, that is a fantastic legacy. Okay, so...
I don't mind.
I wasn't going to mention it, but I just had... Jake reminded me in the lead up to this. Jake and I have known each other since you were like 13, right?
Terry founded whatsonstage.com, the website, and yes, I know. And Terry used to run theatre nights in the West End. So you'd go to a show, go to a Q&A that Terry would host, and I'm from Nottingham, and I literally, like, from the age I was allowed to go on the train by myself, I would go by myself or with my nan. And we went to taste, and we've known each other for now 20 years.
But you also started messaging me through the message board on the website, and then you came to intern
with me when I was 15.
And look at him now. Although it does remind me how old I am. So, thank you, audience. You've been wonderful. Jack, Jake, you're wonderful. Please, we're going to give them a big round of applause. And then, please, if you are on social media, get your phones out. Take photos. Oh, I should say the play script is available. Maybe Jake will sign it for you, because I think they sold out of the signed copies.
It's on Amazon as well.
Yeah. And program, and also there are signed posters available to buy here too. So it's a good. And maybe Jack will sign something.
I've got a poster.
Yeah. But anyway, audience, thank you. Spread the word. Wonderful.